Hi everyone in English 2323, it's Dr. E and I'm here with your week 3 instructional video. I do want to apologize for posting the materials just a little bit late. Even though my set deadline every week is Monday by noon, I often like to post things, your materials and your assignments a bit early by a couple of days, just because I know some of you do like to work ahead. But just know that you can always read ahead, and I hope not to take advantage of my own due date and time of Mondays at noon in the future. This was just a kind of off week for various reasons. Let's go ahead and jump to the content area to look at week 3 and what we are responsible for. So I'm going to scroll and click on week 3. You do have some reading this week by Mary Wollstonecraft. We want to read the biography about her by, we'll credit Greenblatt, our main text editor, for that biography. And then Wollstonecraft's text, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. So you're watching the weekly instructional video. You actually won't have a supplemental video this week because you do have a pack-back video. So I'll update that in just a second. My apologies. What is shifting this week is that we do have our discussion area in pack-back now rather than D2L. So that is nothing changing to our general timeline in terms of Thursdays and Sundays, but we're going to be using pack-back instead of D2L. And then you do have a participation quiz. So we have a kind of light week ahead. And part of that is because we do have a good amount of reading. And so you want to take breaks and make sure that you're approaching that bit by bit. But I also want us to make sure we're reserving some time and energy for learning and walking through pack back. Some of you may be familiar with the program, some of you not. There is an intro video, so please take some time to watch that. It's not very long, but it just gives you a good visual and walkthrough of the different areas. When we're making the shift to pack back, I really want us to consider, the reasoning, right? Like, why, Dr. E, are you doing this? Part of it is because of the functionality. Packback just offers some options that D2L does not. The discussion area in D2L is pretty limited. Many of you have emailed me about mistakes that you may have made or edits that you wanted to implement in your discussion post, but D2L doesn't allow us to edit our posts, and that's pretty frustrating. But Packback does, and Packback also will provide you input regarding grammar and writing in general. So in addition to Grammarly, this really is a program that encourages you to push your ideas a bit, which is very helpful in terms of, our critical thinking and the caliber of our writing related to literature. So you are also going to create a thoughtful, thought-provoking question, but our schedule remains the same. So what does all this mean? Let me first scroll up to the table of contents to note that there is a whole module set up for Packback. So if you click on that, this has, just general information. If you ever have questions, if you have some concerns about the tech, you have all the contact information for Packback. I am not a Packback expert. You and I are learning and working through this together, but the folks at Packback are so responsive and so helpful and friendly, so don't hesitate to get in touch with them if you have some tech issues. Additionally, the video is also posted here, as well as some other quick links that'll be helpful if you need just a refresher or if you have some questions about what you are able to do. All of those videos are available here. I'm going to click on week 3 and scroll down. So let's actually move to Packback. I'm going to pause for just a second to cough. Okay, so I always want you to access Packback through D2L. So you can either click here or in the module, click on that same link. That is the third-party integration. That's what it means. So this is what Packback will look like on your screen. I am in my instructor view, of course. It looks a little bit different from y'all's, but not by much. So you note that we have our class here, and then we have the deadline. So our deadline is Sunday, February 5th, right, for our 2 questions, our 2 responses to one another. So I can only put a single deadline in Packback. So you need to be thinking about, like, Thursday is your deadline for your initial post, and then Sunday is, your deadline for those 2 responses, just as we've been working with before. So there will always be assignment instructions here. And this just notes that, with Packback, our goal is to create a thoughtful and thought-provoking question, and that's based on whatever reading we have for the week. So this week it will be Wollstonecraft. Remember, the biography about her is not written by her, so if you do reference elements from her biography, please credit Greenblatt, our main text editor. And I put, you are driving the conversation here. You're asking one another questions. We can get in a rut oftentimes by me posting a prompt and you responding to it. I get in a rut with how I, formulate those questions and prompts. You get in a rut because sometimes they're just not, the direction you'd like to go in terms of what we're reading. So this gives you a bit of freedom to create a question. You're going to create that, and then you're going to detail what the context is for that question. And so I put here, your question needs to begin with the week number. So in D2L, I often say we need the subject line to be our names, but your name will be pretty apparent here when you respond to one another. So I want you to make sure that your question begins with the week number, and that's just for grading purposes. That helps me with organization, just with the way Packback is set up. As we do in D2L, Thursdays and Sundays, so your initial question and description due Thursday, your responses to 2 questions of colleagues by Sunday. And I put here a note, if you need to submit late, the 48-hour grace period does not apply to discussion posts as it does to upload assignments, but there may be times when slightly late contributions, those that are, an hour late, or, I try to be reasonable. But at the same time, with discussion posts, they are dependent upon the interaction, right? You posting, getting responses, and having a kind of conversation. So the 48-hour grace period doesn't necessarily apply. But if you need to submit late, please send me an email just for organization. The way that Packback is set up, having that email is really going to help me. But in the email, you don't need to be apologetic. You don't need to let me know what happened or why. Things happen, right? There is no judgment. You don't need to share private details about your life or feel like I'm going to judge you. Absolutely not. My assumption is going to be that stuff is happening and that you needed a little bit of extra time, not necessarily 48 hours, right? But you needed a little bit of extra time. All right, so I want you to note that that's the assignment instructions. So then you click back here to go to the discussion. And what I've done is I've offered an example question, and I want to note you do not reply to my question. This is just an example because I want you to kind of get a sense of, what you can do, what's available, what are the expectations. So I'm just going to click on. So you'll note that I put week 3 here, and then I put my question. So of course you want to think of your own question. Mine is Wollstonecraft's text is identified as feminist for different reasons, but she essentially notes that women are weak. Does she really mean this? Why or why not? So it is an open-ended question. Packback will urge you to create an open-ended one. And then I've put a description. I've put here information about Wollstonecraft that led to me creating this question. She lived during a time period when women weren't afforded the same rights, though her whiteness may have afforded her certain levels of freedom. So I'm getting into, the ideas that have then helped me create this question. So I'm offering detail about the time period. I'm giving Greenblatt credit for, a quote from her biography in the text. Okay. And then I end with, so why does Wollstonecraft write that women are rendered weak and wretched? And then in addition, you're able to post videos or links, and that sometimes can just be helpful or something that's visually appealing. So you can post a picture if you want that relates. I posted a link to a YouTube video where a professor reads a little excerpt from A Vindication of the Rights of Women, just because it's interesting, okay? So, and then I've given a source here, and that's what you'll want to do as well. So my source, of course, begins with Wollstonecraft, okay? So if you go back, what you want to do if you're responding to somebody else, remember this is just me providing an example. You want to respond to one another. You want to click Add a Response. Okay, and then it will prompt you for this. So it will allow, you have the pinned question at the top so you can review it if you want to. You want to summarize, and it gives you some word count limits, right? Because you want to, have your thesis, right? What's the main point? And then you'll defend your response here. And you can add pictures, links, anything you want. You can bold, underline, do whatever you want. I prefer paragraph format just in terms of grading. and then you cite your source. So what you want to note that with your question and with your response, you're going to have these things over here, and PackBack will give you a level for curiosity, credibility, communication, convention. So we want to definitely push these ratings to get the best possible grade. So you have a sense of, as you're writing, what your potential grade will be based on, these kinds of itemized categories right here. And then you'll submit your post. Okay. So that's generally, and I want you to spend some time just kind of clicking through and looking through things. I'm going to go back to the discussion just to show you where it all starts, right? So you have deadline, week 3, and then I've pinned my question. You don't need to pin yours. But when you go to start your question, of course, you click here. So this is where you write your question and your description. Remember, you can change the font and add things and then cite your source. And again, you'll be pushed on curiosity, credibility, communication, and convention. And then you'll click submit. So I do want to note that if you go back to your question, and if you go to, I'm going to go to the full post so you can take a look at it. If you scroll down, options are right here. So this is what some of the, like this is just for me, some of these are just for Professor View, but you have the option to edit. Okay, so just make sure that you edit as needed. If you need to do any of the other things available to you here, like I said, some of these are not available to everybody. So just make sure that you're poking around and looking around and going in and scrolling through and answering other folks' questions. It's always great to answer a question answer a question that has not been responded to yet. So know, who has been responded to already, so we can get a good conversation. Excuse me, I have to cough. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Get a good conversation going. All right, so if we go back to, and so you'll note that we're still in D2L, which makes it really easy to navigate. So I'm going to go back to week 3. And then you'll also have your quiz. Okay, so very straightforward. A lot of it's based on the reading, some of it from this video. The random word for this week's video is water. If you do have any questions, please make sure that you're posting in that Q&A discussion board area. Some of you have been doing that. I really appreciate it. It's just such a helpful way to share information so that everybody has those answers. If you have any other questions, of course, you can reach out to me, or we can talk during office hours if you'd like to meet then. But hopefully you have a great week. Stay dry, stay safe.